So everybody's going to get a little message. There we go. All right. So I am Melissa Tompkins Lewis, and I'm so excited to be hosting a meeting for Meghan today. She is going to be talking to us about having challenging conversations as a veterinary practice manager or other leader in your hospital. I know there's a lot of technicians who are leaders too that are registered for the webinar. So whatever role you're in, you're dealing with people, and people are sometimes not that easy. So Meghan is going to talk to us about that. And I'm going to let Meghan introduce herself with all her cool things. I have her bio, but I didn't memorize it, and it's not on my screen. So I don't want to wing it other than to say Meghan is a CVPM. She's been in the field for a long time, and she has done a lot of stuff in this field. So Meghan, you feel free to introduce yourself, and I will go ahead and mute and let you take it away.
Oh, thank you so much. Hey, I really appreciate everyone being here today. I know that it's Prime Day, so if you're like shopping in the background, I totally understand. That can be a little bit distracting. I am Meghan. I am in Houston, Texas. When I was 15, my mom said I needed a summer job and I could walk to the veterinary clinic, and that's my first job and my last job. So I have vet med running in my blood. I started out like a lot of us, cleaning kennels, and worked my way to technician and up to CSR, and then graduated with a degree in communication and decided that wearing scrubs and playing with puppies was a much better deal than like going out in the real world. So here I am 20 some odd years later, still doing the thing. I am in a different role now. I work with a small corporate group. We have 25 veterinary practices between Texas, Colorado, and California. So now I am in the EC, GP, urgent care world, which is a whole nother thing for me, but I am super excited. I love operations. I love SOP. I love communicating. I love it all. Even the challenging parts of it, I think, are really exciting. So I am very honored to be here today to talk about this. I don't think I will share anything like groundbreaking, but I'm hoping that you will, kind of the rule of the thumb here is fake it till you make it. So I think that that'll get you way further in life than you think. So again, thank you to Melissa, South Coast Veterinary Management Solutions. I love the opportunity. I too am working on myself and doing things like this, which are challenging and scary, but we all need to do something every once in a while that scares us, right? So I will say that even though my degree is in communication and I feel like I use it every day, that I don't use it every day to make PowerPoint presentations. So here we go. Over the next hour, I think you will notice that I value honesty and direct communication. It doesn't always make me a fan favorite, but I embrace it. It's who I am. I will say that I'm usually a square peg amongst round holes, but I get things done. And in my world, that goes a long way. So my goal for today is to instill enough confidence in you to pull up your big girl or big boy pants and tackle the challenging conversations head on. So there's usually two major hurdles when it comes to uncomfortable communication. There's external and internal barriers. Most time, external barriers can be addressed and resolved in advance. Internal barriers are a little bit more difficult to overcome, but just like anything else, they're a new skill, and the more you work on it, the easier it becomes. I'm sure that we're all facing our own unique external barriers, but there are some communication barriers that we all struggle with, like finding an appropriate location to have a conversation. Not just a normal conversation, but like the more serious ones. Not everyone has access to a private office with a door or even room for two. Sometimes I've seen some of those closets that are literally like a broom closet, and that's what you're operating out of. I realize that there's lots of different communication styles, and that personality and communication styles kind of sound similar, but they each come with their own distinct hurdles, I think. Personalities, I mean, superior agendas. Sometimes you're delivering someone else's potentially confrontational message, which can definitely add a layer of anxiety when you're not just communicating your own message. And I know that time management is something we all struggle with. There's never enough hours in the day, but your staff really does deserve timely communication. So what can we do about these things? not saying all conversations, but sensitive or maybe confrontational conversations should probably be best discussed behind closed doors with enough chairs for everyone in a comfortable environment, and maybe have a box of Kleenex. Not saying you're going to make people cry, but if you do, it's certainly better to have the Kleenex there than have to go search for it. Different communication styles and personalities. If you haven't already made personality tests part of your onboarding process, I would highly recommend it. There's several vet med vendors out there that will do personality assessments for you over lunch and learn. You just need to schedule that. We had a poster hung in our break room. It had everybody's results and a reminder of their common traits. So you knew that this person liked, direct communication. You knew that this person maybe didn't make eye contact or needed longer to come around to an idea. It was color coded. We addressed it all the time. It was fantastic. You can do colors. You can do like, what kind of dog are you? But it really kind of opens up people's ideas of different communication styles. When you're in your own little world, you know how you operate. And sometimes you just think that everyone else is exactly the same way. And they're definitely not. You know that there's the person that's going to cry no matter what. Like, we're just talking to you about Tuesday's schedule. There's no need to cry, Susie. But knowing how people react, knowing how people hear your message, knowing how you can tailor your message to them will make a huge difference in overcoming some of these barriers. So what do you do when you have to deliver someone else's message? We all have bosses, and sometimes they want us to do their dirty work, or they want us to say something that we don't necessarily agree with, which can add a layer of difficulty. It's so important to confirm this message. You want to make sure that you're on the same page, communicating what they want you to communicate and communicating it without any bias. It's our job. We work for them. And these aren't like the moral or ethical dilemmas that I'm talking about. It's more like no, Dr. Jones, you can't have off the entire month of December, right? Like, that conversation's not going to go well, but it's still something you need to do. So just make sure that you have the bullet points of what they want you to say, and make sure that you're communicating that message clearly. Time management. So these conversations that we're talking about really do deserve your attention. You should schedule the time. You should stick to it. No one wants to hear, let's talk later, or I need to see you in my office, only to be blown off a couple of times for more important things. And you hate it when your staff does this. That dreaded text message of, I need to talk. And then like they're stuck in surgery or something else. Like, we just need to like confront these things head on, get them over with. You hate it when your staff does it to you, so don't do it to them. Internal barriers. These are usually a little bit harder to fix, like empathy, sharing someone's emotion, which isn't necessarily a weakness, but can be a hurdle. Same with fear, which can be overwhelming, but can be overcome. Imposter syndrome is rampant in vet med, right? Whether it comes from being new to the position or moving up through the ranks or being younger than the doctors. This is something that I think we've all suffered with at some point, and some people internalize it more than others. Along with overthinking, can keep you up at night, can distract you from moving on to other tasks, can distract you from getting the main task done. So we need to definitely get over that. And then personal bias towards employees, good or bad, can add on a layer of difficulty when you're having these conversations, whether they're your best work friend or like the person you're just waiting to fire. Like, they all deserve the same attention and respect. And so we need to learn how to work past those hurdles by doing things like, we're human. It's okay. We care about our staff, but it shouldn't get in the way of promoting the greater good of the practice, right? Squeaky wheel gets the grease. I often feel like sometimes we pay more attention to the bad seed than we do to our, shiny apples. So you just have to remember that people usually fire themselves, right? That's one of my greatest takeaways in life is that you're not the bad guy. You've told them what you expect, and then you're holding them accountable. So that's not a bad thing. That doesn't make you mean. Fear. It's a big one. So what's the worst thing that could happen? I mean, literally, like really, like I could have this conversation and I could die, but that seems unlikely. Someone could cry. That's a bit more likely, but in the scheme of things, not that big of a deal. They could disagree with you. It could be uncomfortable, but that's not the worst thing that could happen. So let's role play your fears. Let's go through the craziness, the snakes drop from the ceiling, or, you know, the building catches on fire. Like, let's figure out what the biggest things are and then work our way back. Because if we can get over those fears, then the actual conversation probably won't be that big of a deal. And I will say that I use this tactic for everything from like roller coasters to this presentation. Like, as long as my worst fear for today, as long as I don't vomit on camera, like, I'm good. So I can just role play through that. What about imposter syndrome? So I can tell you that you were hired for a reason. Someone saw something in you that made you believe, that made them believe in you. But that doesn't matter until you believe in yourself. So I would say fake it. Is there someone that you admire? Is there someone that has, you know, good communication, someone that stays calm under pressure, someone that doesn't sweat the small stuff? Pretend you're them, pretending to be you. I know it sounds silly, but you can try it. My mom hates making phone calls, and so she pretends she's me on the phone making phone calls for her, and it's how she gets through her life. It does sound silly, but you know, it's a small step. So what about overthinking? There's nothing wrong with planning ahead, but overthinking after the fact never solves anything. You can't go back in time, right? You can't change the outcome. And the only way to stop overthinking is to stop overthinking. You have to redirect. You got to move on to the next thing. This takes self-awareness, which is a skill set to practice. But it's just, you just practice it. You know, some people do that little rubber band that they need to, like, if they're thinking about having a cigarette, and you pop the rubber band and then you move on to the next thing. Imagine going to bed at night and just falling asleep instead of reviewing all of the silly things that you said that day. I think working on this can really be a game changer in all of your life, not just in like difficult conversations. And then personal bias is something that I struggle with. They might be the sweetest, you know, best, they bring cookies every Friday, or they just are fantastic with clients. But if they filled meds 3 times wrong this week, it needs to be addressed. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to yell at them. You don't have to wrap their knuckles with a ruler. You just have to be professional. You have to be fair. And I think you owe that to your staff. So thank you so much to everyone who suggested topics for today. We had some duplicates, and a few seem to be more operational than conversational. So unfortunately, I won't have time to address everything today, but I just want to do the ones that seem to be repetitive, or the ones that are popping up on the social media fields again and again. So vendor drop-ins, right? This is so annoying. How many times have you hidden? Like, I have duck walked, you know, behind a door. I have changed my voice on the phone. I have all of the things. I've done all of the things. And that's ridiculous. Like, not only do I not have time for vendor drop-ins, I also don't have time to like pretend I'm a tree and not move for 20 minutes. So I think it's really important to take a direct approach. Let them know you would love to chat. You are excited about their new opportunities and can't wait to hear everything they have to offer you, but now is an inconvenient time. We want to keep this communication in the waiting room, right? If you let them into your office, you've already opened that box. They're just going to take a seat. They're going to bring out all their flyers, and they're not going to leave for another 30 minutes. Keep it up front. Tell them what days work best for you. Hey, look, Tuesdays and Thursdays are my slow days. I'd love to see you in the morning. All you got to do is email or text me, and we'll get something on the books. Give them your opportunity. Don't just say like, oh, whatever, just let me know. And then the big thing is after you say, I'm not available now, I'd love to meet then, you have to walk away. You know, it's hard. You just have to be polite. Thank you so much. Walk away. Respecting you is respecting your time. So it doesn't need to be confrontational. You don't need to get in an argument. You don't need to say, Tommy, this is the 6th time you've done this. You just need to be consistent and not sway from your message. Being direct isn't rude. It's just communicating. I know it can be hard. It can be done in an email if that's better for you. If you want to hide that first time and that's how you're comfortable, and then you send an email, that's fine. I'll sometimes you got to do the things that you got to do, but we need to be communicative and tell them what works for us. Staff professionalism. Ooh, no one wants to be the fun police, right? and defining professionalism is kind of nebulous. So if you haven't already addressed it in your handbook, you should. I highly recommend it. The 18-year-old CSR you just hired might have a different idea of what's considered professional. So let's communicate some ground rules and designate some off-limit areas, physically and conversationally. So the hallway outside the exam rooms, off limits. The new club that opened up this weekend that you went to, off limits. There just need to be some things that are never discussed. So we told the ladies up front that they could talk about things like the newest episode of Dancing with the Stars or the restaurant that opened down the street. They can engage clients and say like, oh, have you seen that movie? But we were not going to discuss the fight we had with our boyfriend or our weekend plans or our booty shorts that we just bought, all of those things. So that also means that you need to lead by example. And I know that being practice manager is a lonely job, right? Like you're kind of up there at the top and you're friendly with your staff, but you don't want to be too friendly with your staff. But you don't want to overshare. You want to lead by example for sure. And sometimes you do have to be the fun police. But never did I ever think that I would need to tell one of my associate DVMs that she couldn't discuss her favorite positions with technicians. And I'm not talking about x-ray positions. So there's just some things that like you can't let go. I understand that the job that we're in has all different types of people, and I want people to enjoy themselves, but we definitely have to set some ground rules. And look, I know it sounds silly, but we had a code word. So our code word was taco. Everyone knew the code word. It was part of our onboarding process. I could walk by a group of technicians standing around talking about something they shouldn't. I could casually say taco and I could walk away. It's not saying I didn't shout taco occasionally from some other room when I could also hear them, but I didn't have to scold them. I didn't have to take them aside and say, hey, you know, we really can't talk about potty behaviors in front of, anyway, it gave them the quick ability to reset. They knew what I meant. They knew they needed to stop what they were doing. Wasn't a big deal. Move on to the next thing. So you may certainly borrow taco, but you can also come up with your own word. It's a good staff, you know, like this is a great conversation to have with your staff at your next meeting. So, you know, make up client XYZ complained that they heard you guys talking. We really need to work on this. Or I heard some inappropriate things. Let the staff come up with a word. That way we have the buy-in. And it just makes it easy. It's not even something you have to think about or worry about anymore. Okay, this was a great question. So what about when someone is not a great fit for whatever it is they want to do? They want to grow up and be a veterinarian, or, you know, how can I, this really sweet kennel worker who desperately wants to be a vet assistant, but has the attention span of a Jack Russell. Or your associate DVM who wants to be medical director, but hates people. Usually there's some warning signs, like we know we didn't hire you for that position, we hired you for this position, but there's a lot of people, including myself, that started and moved up. So it's not that it can't be done. It just needs to be done in the right way. And not everybody is fit for every position. People think I'm mean because I'm honest, and people aren't used to that. But to me, it's more mean to make an empty promise and say like, oh yeah, you'll move up to technician in 2 months, rather than addressing it and coming up with a plan. So I would use this opportunity to sit them down, review the job description with the employee that, you know, wants to move up, and see what areas need to be worked on. This way you have the job description in front of them. They know it's not just all fun and games of playing with puppies. This is like blood and guts, or, you know, you want to work up front because you get to sit down, but you also have to deal with money and clients and these kind of things. So going over the job description really lets them know what is expected of them. And then you can say, these are the skills that I think we need to work on in order to reassess moving your position. So let's create a task list. Let's create some realistic goals, and let's create a timeline and say, hey, why don't you read this book? Why don't you do the CE? Why don't you practice X, Y, and Z? And then whether they grow into the position or not, you've acknowledged their wishes, so they feel heard, right? and you've set them up for success, like, I would like for you to do this, and this is what needs to be done. These are the hoops that you need to jump through, and the rest is up to them. It's a perfect opportunity also to address little hiccups in a non-confrontational way. Like, oh, we'd love to cross-train you, but your frequent call-outs make it difficult to schedule you with the lead receptionist. Like, I want to help you, but I need you to show up. So that's a great way to like weave in these little tidbits of things that we need them to work on without like scolding them for the umpteenth time, because that's clearly not working anyway. There's also lots of things, you know, you can say like, hey, there's lots of memorization. How about we keep this little notebook in your pocket and you write down notes? So those are good things for, you know, forgetful Susie who can't remember what client she just talked to or anything like that. It doesn't need to be a hard no. This isn't a forever. This doesn't need to be a difficult conversation. I think you just need to be honest and upfront and let them know. I mean, they're coming to you because they want feedback. So here's your way to give some proper, non-confrontational feedback, right? We all want that. We all want to do better. They're asking you how. Hygiene issues. So I will say that I am in Texas where it is 103 degrees at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and man, oh man, people stink. So do you have a stinky employee? Do you have someone who constantly has diarrhea or cleavage when they bend over? I mean, there's like the repeat offenders that are just every time. So I recommend this being a casual conversation, but definitely a private conversation. I would say maybe as like they're walking by your office to the bathroom, or, you know, they just happen to be passing by, say like, hey, Todd, we need to talk. In situations like this, it's just best to be direct. I think that it's okay to feel awkward in this conversation because you have empathy, right? You don't want someone to have this conversation with you, but you also don't want to be the stinky person. Like, you don't want to walk around with spinach in your teeth and not have anyone tell you. So I think out of respectness, it softens the blow to say I versus we. I've noticed that you seem to be sweaty after walking the dogs in the afternoon. Do you have an extra strap top that you can bring from home, or do I need to order you some more? Hey, I noticed when I walked by a couple of times today, your scrub pants were sitting a little low. Can you wear a tank top next time so that we're not so revealing? I think that some people don't know, or some people don't think other people know. I mean, we're all kind of in our own little world too, right? So you maybe the girl likes the breeze on her backside and doesn't realize it's just not appropriate for her panties to be sticking out. So I think out of respect, you just are direct and you can feel the uncomfortableness. And I had a girl who was stinky, and we talked, and she lost her access to a washer and dryer. And so like, she didn't know that she hand washing her scrub tops at home was not cutting it. But having this conversation, she then reached out to a coworker who let her use her washer and dryer. I mean, I think that people kind of stick their head in the sand and think it's okay until it's not. So when it's affecting their interpersonal relationships at work, when it's infecting the client in the exam room with them, these are just things that need to be addressed. We, you know, again, I'm in Texas, so we don't have legal marijuana, but the girl who came in smelling like weed every day, I had to just say, hey, Suze, you need to spray yourself down before you come in. Like, this is not okay. I think that as long as you avoid saying like, everyone thinks you stink, or everyone says, you know, everyone's coming to me complaining, or everyone's tired of seeing your butt crack, I think you should be okay. I think you just speak with compassion. You speak how you would like to be spoken to. And I think that you can resolve the issue in a very non-confrontational way. Rip off the Band-Aid, just get it done. Don't think about it for a week, because that person's not going to smell any better at the end of the week. I would say that you should document these conversations, not in a way that like, we talked about your sweatiness, I need you to sign this. More so, you know, the date, a brief synopsis of your conversation, the suggestions you made, and then put it in their file. Just so if they ever come back and say like, you fired me because I smell bad, like we had this conversation. It's not about that at all. I would say that this is just a CYA move. And I am not HR, so don't say Meghan said. But but just as a point of reference in case it ever comes up. Performance improvement plans. We all have these, right? It's part of everyone's to-do list. So I'm a little sad that we think that this is a challenging conversation, but I can understand that if you are maybe having this conversation with somebody who has been at the job longer than you, or is older than you, or any of those things, I can see that maybe this would be a little bit challenging. Hopefully we all have a standard form in place, right? And consistency is key. It shouldn't matter if it's your favorite employee or your weakest link, they should all be addressed the same, from doctors to kennel workers, right? We all follow the same rules. We're going to be specific. We're going to address the issue timely, specifically, and with examples. So James, there seems to be some inaccuracies when you're filling prescriptions. Last week, you sent home 5 tablets instead of 25, and then today you sent home meloxicam instead of metronidazole. This is an attack on his personality. We all love him. He's fantastic, but these are the facts. You keep screwing up on the same thing. We need to fix it. So how are you going to fix it? For the next 2 weeks, the lead tech's going to go ahead and double check all your prescriptions before you send them out. If they're accurate, great. If at the end of the 2 weeks, we're still having some inconsistencies, we're going to send you out for some online pharmacy CE, okay? So then you've got an action plan, a timeline. You just need to be sure that you're sticking to the timeline. So if there's no improvement after the first check-in, you need to reassess and update the timeline. And don't keep going, right? Like, we're not going to just keep doing the same mistakes forever and ever. We're going to have an end to our timeline eventually. It doesn't have to be first strike. It doesn't have to be second strike, depending on what it is. But we can't just keep doing the same things over and over again. So being transparent, having your goals and your timeline means that there's no surprises. Your response to them is a direct result of their actions. So again, like people who fire themselves, if they're not meeting our expectations, that's on them. We've done X, Y, and Z to help them. So hopefully this doesn't need to be a difficult conversation. But then there's dramatic DVMs, which is kind of a difficult conversation, right? I always said that DVMs were my most difficult group to manage. They're by far the most demanding. We love them, right? And we can't live without them. So you got to make this work. I think that the pressure the DVMs are under is overwhelming. I can't even imagine what they're up against. You know, they have more legal ramifications than we do. So that adds an extra layer. I think their bad behavior, though, sometimes stems from a healthy ego, which is great, or maybe a sense of power, which is where I want to meet them when we start these conversations. And I think you can be day 1 as a manager, or you could be, you know, year 20, and the conversation can be the same. Like, we're doing the best for our staff, and we're doing the best for our practice, and these are things that need to be addressed. So something like, Doc, we know you've really been working hard, and we super appreciate you staying late last night for that sick kitten. You know how much the staff looks up to you. So when you kick that trash can out of frustration, it sets a really bad example for the staff. I think you come in with like, hey, we're gonna soften this blow, right? We love you. You're fantastic. We appreciate you, but you can't do that. I think you need to be specific. It can't just be like, oh, you're cranky. It needs to be, you can't get trash cans. And there are some things I think we do need to allow them some grace, kind of like our clients. Like, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot for us. It's a lot for them. It's a lot for everybody. So I don't want to allow bad behavior, but it also doesn't need to be a deal breaker. We just need to make it more productive. So let's acknowledge what sets them off and suggest an alternative. Like, I totally get that it's annoying when the CSR forgets to verify a client's email, but calling Jenny stupid isn't helpful. Maybe next time you can send your technician over to talk to Jenny, or I can help you. You're always welcome to come and vent to me. I think you need to give them a sounding board, which is, you know, usually our job. You know, is this a vent, or do you want me to do something about it? And I'm happy for either. I'm welcome to both, but we just need to know where we're going with this. And just like any other performance improvement plan, you need to hold them accountable. Dr. Wilson, we talked about you throwing Sharpies across the treatment room. I'm afraid it's going to be a liability at some point. How can I help you avoid doing that in the future? I think so many of these childish things are just like, you know, temper tantrums. They just have so much going on and they don't know what to do. And so we want to give them healthy outlets to do it, but we need to hold them accountable. And that doesn't need to be a difficult conversation. It's just like you would reprimand your child or your dog or your whatever. Like, this is an unacceptable behavior. We're going to change it. I know it's scary though. It's okay. Angry and aggressive clients. Man, so there's loads of information out there about talking with angry or aggressive clients or employees for that matter. I'm not sure that I can glean any better insight than anyone else, but I can tell you what has worked for me. So that's what I'll share with you now. Again, grain of salt, not HR. But I think it's so important to remember that it's not personal. Sometimes I'll take a step back and I'll think like, wow, if he's this upset that his dog's nails aren't trimmed, like what happens when something big happens in his life? Like, it's easy for me to take a step back and say like, this is so irrational. I can't even like I can't get to his level. Like I just can't. And so moments like that make it easier for me because I can say like, whoa, what are we dealing with here? I understand and I know that it feels really personal when someone's yelling at you. But this is a them issue. This is not a you issue. So if you can take a breath, take a moment, let's figure out what the issue is, go from there. I like to have an SOP. I like to have an SOP for everything, but I like to have an SOP, right? We're going to stick to the plan. When you're in fight or flight mode, if you're trained and you know these are the 3 steps I need to do, you can just do the 3 steps. You don't have to think about like, what am I doing? So if you want to take them in an exam room, don't start the conversation up front. If your plan is to have a conversation behind closed doors, you know, hold the door open to the exam room and say, Mrs. Jones, I'd love to address your concerns. Please follow me into the room. Don't argue across the counter. Don't raise your voice in a lobby full of 25 people. If your plan is to take them in the room, take them in a room before you start the conversation. And you know, man, you know those clients that are coming in hot, you know those clients that need to be taken out of the lobby. Usually it's not a surprise if you're going to be up against someone like that. If you have a 0 tolerance policy for abusive language, let them know. Mrs. Jones, when you raise your voice and use profanity, I have a difficult time concentrating on your concerns. Would you like to call me back later? Or can we, you know, lower your tone? Which I am a huge proponent of suggesting an email. I understand you're upset right now. I want to help. Can you please email me your concerns so I can share them with the doc and we can respond appropriately? There is nothing wrong with that. I love it. It covers you for documentation. It takes a step back. Generally, I mean, it's just like, you know, client complaints or Yelp reviews, like someone goes home and goes like, and then a lot of times they're going to sit on it and think like, oh, that's not really what I want to say. So I love a good email. I would say, please try not to argue back. It's not a good look. It's never very productive. It's just going to get everyone riled up and not get you to your end game. So if there's any way you need to breathe, you need to think of your happy place, whatever it is that you need to do to take that step back, figure out what that is. Usually clients just want to feel heard, right? They want to vent and they want to feel heard. So listen to what they have to say if they're being rational, or read their email. Ask them how they'd like to resolve it. So many times my ladies up front to be like, oh, it's free, or oh, I'm going to discount this, or oh, and half the time the clients, that's not even what they're looking for. Like they just want to be heard. So the guy who's upset because he didn't get a nail trim doesn't need every nail trim. He just needs the dog nails trimmed. So let's just do it. You don't have to comp everything in order to solve problems. So if it's something within reason, let's just get it done. Let's help them right there. No need to drag it out. Apologize, fix it. Some angry clients are angry for a reason. I mean, there's so many moving parts in our day that sometimes we do mess up. We did overlook the nail trim. I am so sorry. Let's get it done now. It's a bigger ask. You just tell them you need to check with your boss or whoever it is, and that you'll be in touch. And then it's so important to be in touch. Like you are setting up this expectation to help this angry client. So you have to follow up. So if you say, I'm going to call you back tomorrow and you don't have an answer by tomorrow, you still got to call them back tomorrow because you said you would, and they're upset. So drawing it out is not going to make it any better. You just have to follow through and do the best that you can. And look, clients need to be fired. There's clients that will never be happy, and there's a time and a place for that. But I would like it to be the exception and not the rule, I hope. So those are my big topics. There were quite a few operational odds and ends that I think were thrown in there that I thought we could address and see if we can't knock out some of those. Like, you only care about money. I mean, I do care about money, right? I gotta keep the doors open. I gotta turn the lights on. I have to have the doctors. For those clients that say you only care about money, I would provide a handout with payment options, links to apply. I just have a standardized thing. Of course, we care about your pet, but here are some payment options for you. I don't know if y'all remember Wendy Myers, but she used to suggest to hand them a list of pawn shops that were nearby. And I thought that was like ridiculous. But now that I work with emergency practices, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is such a good idea. So you can really think outside of the box. There's lots of rescues out there. There's lots of angel funds. There are lots of opportunities for money that doesn't mean you're discounting, or doesn't mean you're comping, or doesn't mean you're turning them away. So I would like to meet them in the middle so that we all feel like we're doing good. I also have a sheet that compares doesn't compare apples to apples. It talks about why my spay is more expensive than the spay down the street at the spay neuter clinic. And I really like to hand them that, because people say like, $400 for a neuter, I can get that down the street for 20. Well, in Texas, first off, they say I can do that myself, but then they say I can get that for $20 down the road. And so I just say, like, it's an option if that works for you. And then I can give them this handout that talks about blood work and gas anesthesia and yada, yada, yada. All of the things that we do are different. And then they can make their own decision. But I know that I am having that conversation. I am expressing that we are not just about money. We do care about your pet. Mrs. Jones, first and foremost, we care about your pet, but the services we provide come at a cost. We provided you with several payment options. Let us know how you'd like to proceed. Like, you don't have to say, no, we do care. It's best not to get in a fight. It's best to give them options and let them choose for themselves. Okay, client XYZ needs to be fired, right? Yes. So sometimes they do. But do we need to accept a client's naughty behavior just because they have a credit card and a Yelp account? No, we don't. But we all have bad days. I know that we are all the worst pet parents. I mean, my dog has a lump and I'm like, oh my God, it's cancer. And so I totally get that people are like, here when they come to us. It's, if you're not here, even, nail trims, and they're like, they're crying. So let's give them a moment, please, to stress out and be the crazy cat ladies that they are. No offense, Melissa. And then let's address what we need to address. We don't need to fire every client that's upset. We don't need to make rash decisions about firing clients. We don't need to leave firing clients just up to the front desk staff because they are getting the brunt of it, but we do need to be open to their frustrations. Just like we need to be open to our clients giving us feedback or asking questions or challenging us. Sometimes it's valid, right? Sometimes the doctors misspeak. Sometimes we run the wrong test. We're not infallible. And it's okay to be called out on it, but how they do it is really, and if you can bridge that gap to the next appointment is really what we need to focus on. I would suggest brainstorming on how to reset. There's going to be cranky people in the world. We just need to be able to move past it. I personally like the 30-second dance party button. That's not your jam. I would figure out what is, but when someone comes in and tears down your whole staff, we need to be able to finish the next 5 hours of our day without everyone being grumpy or slamming doors or doing whatever. Like, we all want to help the pets, and the pets come with owners. So we have to figure out how to communicate with them. All right, discounting my cousin's neighbor's sister's cat. So I hope that you have a discount protocol outlined in your handbook. Oh, wait, I skipped. We'll go back to that. I hope you have a discount outline in your handbook. Hopefully you're tracking discounts that are given. If you're not doing those things, let's start now, please, because you have to inspect what you expect. So if we don't want them to be given crazy discounts outside, we need to make sure we're tracking it. And there's a ton of great options to reel in discounts. I really like the one where you give everyone 100 pennies and then show them how it spends. 15 cents of every dollar goes to COGS and 50 cents goes to payroll and et cetera. I found it super effective. If you don't have an open book policy, people don't know. People just, they know that they're earning however much they are an hour and they can't afford this stuff. And so they feel bad and discount it. But everything costs money. So we just need to make sure that we're explaining ourselves to our staff so that they can explain it to our customers. You can create an angel fund, and whatever's fundraised you can use for your discounts, or you can give them an allowance for discounting. I've heard that works. Like, you have $200 a month, you can use it all on one puppy, or you can give everybody $10. Whatever works best for your practice and your people. You just need to make sure that you're tracking it and kind of reeling in those repeat offenders. Back to could, should, would, do it myself. I know lots of us have come up through the ranks, and even if you didn't, yes, you too are capable of cleaning a cage or picking up poop, like we all are. It's not a special skill set. But like, I'm the only one that can run payroll, right? I'm the only one that can fix that thingamajig in the lab, or the laundry list of the million other things that are on our to-do list that only we can do. I'm all for teamwork. I'm also all for delegation. Like, you've got to stop feeling guilty for doing your job and not someone else's. So it's okay to ask someone to help you. It's okay to involve other people in your task list. It's okay to say, I can't get to that right now. Can you come back to me in an hour? It's okay to shut your office door when you need to do something important. Like, no one wants payroll screwed up, right? So when you come to me 25 times with little things, I'm going to be distracted. So if my door is shut, it means I'm doing something that I need to focus on, and that's okay. We have jobs that are important, and you have to give yourself the opportunity to do your job, because if you're doing everyone else's job, it's going to affect yours. Okay. Discount or DVMs that think things are too expensive. Man, I wish they would. I just wish that DVMs would invoice what they're worth. Like, they go to school, they come out with like hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and then they think that like the injection of this or that is too expensive. They're some of the biggest hearted and the most frugal people I've ever met. I don't know if you guys have ever encountered these doctors who are like, you used how many tongue depressors on that? Like, I used 2. It's okay. There's less than a cent each. So like, it takes all kinds, and we're trying to run a business, right? I totally understand. And some things might be overpriced. So if there's, if you have 4 doctors and they're all discounting the same thing, maybe you've overpriced something, and we can have that conversation, but I want to have the conversation. I don't want to just keep discounting stuff. I think it's important for them to know that you don't dictate the crazy cost of Apoquel or the twice yearly lab increase. Like, sorry, it's expensive. We can look for alternatives that don't work as well. We can try generics. There's lots of ways to do things less expensive, but at the end of the day, these things cost money. And I bet that your doctors don't all know the cost of things. So when they say like, that's crazy, like, it is, I agree. I couldn't afford Apoquel, but that's what they charge us. So this is what we have to do. So I think you can also use the penny example for this one. Like, this is what it costs. This is what our costs, or these are our bills that we have to cover. I also think a return on investment calculator is really good for something like this. Like, the doctors who say, we need more techs, or a new ultrasound machine to collect dust, or everyone needs to get a raise. Like, great. I think that that's fantastic. I don't disagree, but it's going to cost this many dollars to do that. So how would you like to do it? Would you like to go up on this? Would you like to, like, if you take discounts at the end of the month and say like the $1,200 that you discounted would have been the raise for this technician. Not for the month, Anyway, I think that if you include them in the process, you can share in the wins and help minimize the losses. And that way, you just need their buy-in. Like, I don't disagree that pricing can be like a live thing that changes, but we need to be headed in the direction of being profitable. And so we just need to all know what that means. Oh, okay. Man, you guys have stuck with me to the end. I really appreciate that. Okay. I will say that, yeah, I didn't say anything groundbreaking today. I hope that this will serve as a reminder to be brave and to believe in yourself and to believe in your ability to conquer those challenging conversations. And hopefully, as you get braver, you'll have less challenging conversations, right? Sometimes they're just conversations. They don't have to be challenging. That's a lot of an internalization on your part. But if you need to, you can just pretend you're me being you. And then we're good, right? You just, we got this. It'll be great. I have not been paying attention to the chat. I don't know if there's any questions or concerns.
We don't have any questions in the chat, but if you'd like to open the floor to questions, you're more than welcome to. If anyone has anything, Joan shared about how she loves an SOP also. And she has one for client issues in various situations, email, phone, in person, and who does what, et cetera. So that was awesome.
I think that's perfect. And I think like the more prepared you are, you don't have to wing it every time. It doesn't have to, You're not starting from scratch every time.
I like to give people phrases sometimes, because sometimes if it's in the moment of you're being stressed out or annoyed or whatever, if you have a phrase that you can give, and then you can start with that. So Tia says she needs help with SOPs.
I've got a blog I can share with you.
So if you guys want, Megan's put her email on the screen. You guys can copy that down and email her if you have any questions. And then Tia says, I know the importance of them, but my owner is not very helpful. Yeah. So what would you suggest?
Do you need your owner to make them, or you need your owner to enforce them? I think you need your owner to enforce them. Or at least not
She said
be detrimental to you enforcing them, which is a huge thing, right?
So she's saying both her and the owner making and enforcing.
Yeah. I think if it were me, I would create them and then I would share them, and then I would ask them if they had any feedback, and when they don't, I would roll them on out.
Yeah, I think sometimes owners don't really understand, if you don't put it in writing, people can't always follow the steps. They think just because they learned it and memorized it that they should be able to, oh, there you go. When I make them, she forgets them. So she's not following your SOPs that you're making, Tia. That's basically what you're saying. Oh gosh.
I am a fan of laminating sheets, and I would stick those things. Here's the blood machine. Here's the SOP on how to use the blood machine. Like, I love a good handbook too. I love a Bible to refer back to, but I also like things in front of you until you stop screwing them up. Some things last forever. Some things stay there forever, and some things go away after a couple weeks.
Yeah, my friend Dee said when she came back to one of her hospitals after she left for several years and worked there again, there was still the stuff that she had put up from when she was the manager like 6 years prior.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. Does anyone else have any questions? Jenny says, I say the biggest takeaway for SOP is follow up, and then we check with the team depending on SOP after 1 to 4 weeks. If it's not working, then we change it. I do think follow up is a total key. Absolutely.
For sure. Well, and having someone who knows how to do it to check you, because I have all the ideas in the world, but if I'm never pulling blood or running this, then I don't really know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, making sure it works for the flow of whoever's doing that role. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else have any questions? You can chat it or you can shout it out and unmute yourself. All right, I think that we're good. So I will be posting this recording on my YouTube channel, South Coast Veterinary Management Solutions, if I can talk, and sharing that with you guys. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Megan, for speaking and providing this awesome information. I love the dog in the mud picture. That was awesome. And I got some tidbits, so I appreciate that. So thank you guys. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.